being recorded. So we will put these slides as well as recording on our YouTube channel. And then the last bullet point is stand and attend. As I always say in our webinars, if you have joined previously, that this is a challenge I give to all the participants, that you have to attend and you have to stand and attend this webinar. Why stand and attend? Because if you keep sitting entire day, right, while working, I could see that Sakshi was sitting on a chair. So Sakshi, very, very specific challenge to you. So stand and attend. If you keep sitting whole day, you will get foggy brain, strained neck, heart disease and all. We do not want that. What we want to stand and we want to stay fit, because Elite CISO runs a very active fitness community. I always try to promote that. So stand and attend. If you are standing, you will think sharper. You will not have heart disease and all. And see that I am also standing. I am not sitting on my chair. So I give a challenge to you all to stand and attend this webinar. If you accept this challenge, type yes on the chat window. Let me see how many people are accepting that. Great. So I see a lot of yes coming in. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you all for accepting the challenge. I'm sure this will help you. With this, let me pass it to Gavin and 𝗬𝗵𝗲 for the session. Thank you, everyone, for accepting the challenge. Stop.
Thanks, Vikas.
You can share your screen.
Thank you. I'm just going to do an introduction and then I'm going to hand over to 𝗬𝗵𝗲. Morning, everyone, and obviously thank you for your time today. My name is Gavin 𝗬𝗲. I'm the Enterprise Director for the RSA Secure ID business in Asia Pacific. I'd like to open the discussion with a couple of brief points, if I may. As we currently move through some very difficult times for everyone, nothing in tech has been more keenly felt. The new norm is exactly that. Cloud adoption has spiked over 40% in industry segments. A number of untrusted devices accessing business applications increased enormously, and remote working scenarios prompted almost 90% of organizations to make at least one security policy change in the prior 12 months. With these rapid shifts imposed upon organizations, now is the time to reflect back and take stock. What hastily activated programs may have increased the security attack surface and opened up potential vulnerabilities? How do we manage this new workforce remotely? How do we ensure that user entitlements are sound? And also, how do we assess governance and ensure compliance? Identity management, proper governance, and of course, modern authentication practices all form part of the RSA Secure ID authentication platform. With a hybrid cloud approach, we yet again lead the industry with auto failover for critical applications that are protected by a Secure ID Access Cloud service. With the full support of passwordless and FIDO environments all the way from endpoint out to the cloud, including governance and lifecycle, and of course, embracing the aspirations of zero trust as a mindset. Thank you again for your attendance today. I hope you'll find the content useful and applicable. I'll now hand over to 𝗬𝗵𝗲𝗀, who will take you through today's presentation. Thanks again.
Hi all, hope you can hear me properly.
Yep, loud and clear.
Great. Let me share my screen while I okay. Give me a second. Okay, great. All right, so hi all, I'm 𝗬𝗵𝗲𝗀. I'm based out of New Delhi, India. I look into the identity business based out of secure ID, identity and authentication business for North and South, as well as government and PSU based out of Delhi. I've been a security practitioner all my life. It's a new foray for me on the business side of it. I've been a technologist throughout. And so basically what we would like to share is what is RSA's take on identity, and not only how do we differentiate and how does industry differentiate between authentication, why are both necessary, and what is whose responsibility as well, and what would be RSA's take on the whole scenario on identity and authentication as well. All right, having said that, let's start. So do we need to manage it? Is identity a risk? Do we need to spend money? Do we need to spend efforts on it? Well, as Vikas had shown earlier, $55 million is not a small value. And if you see this slide, every one of these you might remember were associated with some kind of a dollar value, which was similar to what Vikas showed as well. Okay, these people lost businesses completely died down. Just to take an example, like Yahoo, and everybody lost something. So I don't want to scare on the notion that there will be breaches and all. There will be breaches, there will be issues, and there will be accounts stolen. But a stolen account should not lead into an entire collapse of an organization which is big and which has been doing good for some time. That's why we need to build in defenses. We need to understand what is the risk. Why does identity bring in a risk? How do we need to, how can we mitigate it? How can we reduce it? How can we understand what is the residual? How can we buy insurance around it? And handle it in a proper governance process where we do a risk understanding, a mitigation of a risk, and basically go ahead and do the qualification around it. So if you see in current changing dynamics, what is happening is everybody is scared. Everybody is trying to build in some kind of an authentication, some kind of an identity, or some sort of defense in their organization. If it is not coordinated, what happens is that everybody tries to build in something by themselves, and the organization comes up with multiple efforts of identity management or authentication management, which creates islands of identity. Now, perpetrators have a very clear understanding when they get inside your organization after the first or second level of lateral movement where your security stands, and they will be very easily able to circumvent if there are multiple or non-coordinated methods or non-coordinated islands over there. Similarly, if you see password protection is getting harder, the number of devices people are accessing the environment is very high. The number of target applications they are getting into both cloud as well as on-prem is also higher. And how do you secure that as well? How do you give user convenience? Because the user is working from home, user is getting into multiple challenges, not as well or not as sorted out issues which are happening in the enterprise. So that is something which is also coming up. The user is also trying to use mobile. The user is also trying to use handheld or wearables. So the users would need convenience around that as well. Okay. Sorry for that. How do reviews happen? How effective are the reviews is something which we need to look into. And anyways, apart from all of these, bring your own devices, on-premise, cloud proliferation in access, etc. The legal teams and the compliance and the regulatory people are not reducing their demand of security as well. Both internal organization as well as regulatory bodies are bringing in regulation more stringent day by day, and they are also trying to impose fines and impose litigations around it. Now, we not only lose our customer when we get breached, we also lose faith, we also lose money, and from a litigator or from a compliance organization, we get banned, we might end up losing a business. These are the risks which we carry, and all of these, if you see nearly all of the breaches which has happened, there was an identity compromise, there was a lateral movement, there was a view, there was a privilege escalation, because there were non-qualified controls which were present in the organization. It is not very hard to maintain those qualifications or qualified controls, but it has to be in a process. So we'll basically go through that process to understand. We understand the risk as of now. We'll understand the process of mitigating the risk as well. Now, the scale of the problem is not small. So let us just, if you assume that there are 10,000 users in an organization, the users will access somewhere around 1,000 resources. They will, at least a user will have 10 accounts. That's an average, which is somewhere around like 5 years old. Currently, a user would have somewhere around 14 accounts. But yeah, if we assume that even the user has 10 accounts, and each of the 10 accounts might have 100 entitlements, then we will go ahead and manage somewhere around a crore of entitlements over there. That is not an easy method or easy way to do it. Neither reviewing all of those is easier. So basically, the scale is high, and we need to break it down. For the approaches, for the initial questions, we need to understand, and we need to create the governance. So every governance regime is built around some queries, is built around some thought processes. So these are the thought processes which you would have around identity. You would stand up as any organization holder if you are an application manager, or you are a CISO, or you are a security practitioner. If you would just hold your hand to your heart and ask these questions to yourself around your enterprise, you should have the answer by yourself. So everybody is who has access to what in your enterprise, and how did they receive it? Do you know? And is it documented? It's a very simple question. What applications people are users are accessing? Are there proper security controls around it? And where the applications are running? Okay. How confident are you that people are granted only appropriate access? There is no less, no more. Okay. And both on application as well as data resources. How do you measure your compliance? And how do you measure your and entertain your internal and external security guidelines? And last and not the least is how much time and effort does your team spend provisioning user access? Say, for example, a new user access is coming in. How much time are you spending to provision that? Is it efficient enough? Do you think it can be reduced? Do you think it can be optimized? Do you think multiple accesses for the user can be done within, say, for example, 3 days? Is something, some of the questions which you would want to ask to yourself. These are the questions which will be revolving around your governance processes as well. Okay, so now let us understand, the who, what, and why of an access. Let us forget identity as of now. What we need to understand is what is the who, what is the why, and what is the access around. So say for example, for anybody to come into your organization, we need authentication. Okay, and during the authentication, the first question which would be answered by the authentication process is who. Okay, who is the user, or who is the contractor, who is the vendor, who is the DANE user, or whoever is coming in. So that's the answer. The authentication would provide you the who part of the identity. Okay, obviously single sign-on will make it easier for accessing the applications and make the who much more relevant accessing all those applications. But single sign-on is also predominantly part of authentication only. It's an extended method of authentication for end user use. But when you come into once you have accepted whoever is coming in, the second question is what they are accessing. That is something which identity management or IDAM will give you. He is, say for example, he is an SAP BASIS admin, right? So what access? You will be SAP. You will get the SAP BASIS access based on either peer control, based on either whatever has been approved for him. And why is something his manager or his application owner would go ahead and based on the user role, if the access is to be granted or not. So that why decision comes in entirely from identity management as well. Now, as the user moves through the organization, lives the life cycle inside the organization and moves out of it, we need to keep all of these checks always constantly going on. So that's why the life cycle part of the identity comes in. And so we understood how the joiner is, how the mover will happen, and how the user leaves the organization and all of his accesses are taken back is something which will happen as a part of the identity lifecycle. So for authentication, we will understand who is coming in, the who part of identity. From identity management, we will go ahead and understand what access they need, why they need it as well. Okay. So to go ahead and do the first activity of any governance process is discovery. Okay. Without discovery, you would not be able to understand what kind of a landscape you have to protect, what kind of risks do you have inside the landscape, and what kind of issues which would be mitigated before we go ahead and and give it to end users. What kind of rules, what kind of a protection is necessary for that landscape as well. So the first activity what we will go ahead and do is to discover the identities accessing all company resources and create certification processes around them. Okay. We will go ahead and put in controls and security as well as compliance controls around them. We will go ahead and do a role management or role mining for them as well to understand if the rules are done properly. These set of activities after the first initial on the first initial user and accounts data will give us quite a good amount of view of what kind of problems are in the organization, so that we can go ahead and put in different kind of policies for privileged access, policies for automated fulfillment, policies for access requests, policies for automated provisioning. So we need to go ahead and understand what kind of a data, what kind of accounts, what kind of an identities are inside the organization, collect them, and then run our compliances around them to identify what kind of issues there are. And then we can go ahead and create processes for fulfillment, processes for privileged access, processes for access requests, etc. Once everything is done and once everything is centralized, both the governance view as well as the provisioning view, then it would be easier for business managers to perform their own reviews, security team to enforce policies, and audit team to go ahead and audit the entire landscape of identity inside the organization from a single place, and even the IAM team to go ahead and gain visibility and control around identities, around other components, other security components as well. So what we are saying is we need to centralize the entire view from a single pane, so that we have a very clear visibility around how the identity and its different components are residing in the organization. All right. Then we need to enable, once we have discovered everything, we need to go ahead and enable a risk-driven strategy. Okay. We need to understand what is privilege, what is privileged access, what is high-risk applications. All of those need to be accounted for. Any kind of a policy or any kind of an extended policy for them has to be thought around and implemented. We need to define outliers. When we say outliers, say for example, Soumik has been asking for an XYZ privilege to his manager 2 or 3 times, but that privilege is not present with his peers. So that might be an outlier for you. There are different kind of outliers, either peer-based or access-based or request-based. All of these are outliers which you need to go ahead and identify, jot down, and based on that, you should be able to take governance-based decisions. Okay. And then all of these components, there would be large number of identities, there would be large number of entitlements which are not documented. All of these have to be documented. The details and the metadata for them have to be filled in, or say for example, descriptors around them have to be filled in, so that you have a very clear understanding of what either you are approving or you are denying. Say for example, an entitlement in a FINICL is, let us just take an example, is a teller who can go ahead and do a yes/no on a web view. Okay. Now the description of that web view has to be present for the teller's manager to go ahead and give him access to that or not. All right. So that has to be, the tool has to be business friendly enough to go ahead and provide you that as well. And then final, and what would be the utmost, is automate as much as processes as possible. Joiner, mover, leaver processes, rules, birthright access, all of these need to be automated as well. All of the governance processes or policies should be effective, so that whenever a user even initiates a process, the policy should still be effective and should tell him or her if there is a violation on the initiation as well. From that point of view, every violation or every action should be documented, should be accepted by the requesters, should be accepted by the approver, and should be well understood by everybody in the cycle as well. So that would complete the risk-based governance cycle as well. Once we have created processes, there are some things which will come out, okay, like orphan accounts, privileged access, outliers, unauthorized change processes or unauthorized changes, changes which are resultant of movement, high-risk applications. All of these will come out, okay. And then, as I said, based on all of these, we need to go ahead and create processes. We need to go ahead and create rules around them as well. So in the whole context, what we provide is a complete identity management suite, wherein for the governance piece, we have identity governance, wherein you can go ahead and collect all of those identities, run your policies, run your rules around them, run your review cycles and everything. For life cycle, you can go ahead and do the entire access request part of it, do the joiner, mover, leaver part of it, do the provisioning part of it. We can go ahead and mine your existing roles in the organizations, find out efficacies around it, and find out if there are any kind of limitations. Based on that, we can go ahead and correct those roles. That will reduce your infrastructure cost substantially from an identity management perspective, and then automate role-based provisioning or role-based access directly as well. For your data in your organization, which is static, which is not moving, who has access to what? Say, for example, what is happening to your SharePoint, what is happening to your standalone accounts on your servers which are not in domain, are something which you need to look into. We can go ahead and provide you views around that as well, and governance capabilities around that as well. So it's a complete suite of different products, means complete suite of single product, different modules, which you can go ahead and engage the entire part or single one by one as well. Now, the biggest question: how do we do it? Now, so much of guidance around governance and policy-based processes. So how do we do it? Now, you will go ahead and see exactly the way I explained a governance-based process. The exact same way we will go ahead and deliver it as well. So the first activity, as I said, is visibility and certification. Collect all of those identities. Run any kind of a collection analytics, do your unification of your collected identities, and run a merger between the identities and the accounts. Okay, create your ownership and all of those access reviews and data ownership reviews as well. Once you have done that, visibility and certification part of it, we go ahead and do the policy management, where we put in segregation of duties, compliance controls, joiner, mover, leaver policies, etc. Okay. Then we go ahead and do request management, where we go ahead and say, for example, how do you request for yourself? How do you request for your subordinate? How do you request for a bulk of people joining in? How do you request for how do you request for somebody else? All of those, how do you request for a contractor, etc. Okay, all of those request management processes and workflows will be built in for you. Then there would be policy-based change management. Say, for example, there was a trigger based on which you were posted to some other role. There would be a policy based on that, and then on that, all of those change management processes will be triggered and approved, and then provisioned into. The second last component is we go ahead and do the role mining for you. We clean up the roles. We go ahead and tell you that, okay, this is how the roles are. These are the better options. So say, for example, inside a role, there might be multiple groups, might be multiple entitlements. We can go ahead and tell you that, okay, these are the groups inside the role who have never been accessed. You might want to take them off. or these are the entitlements which have never been accessed. So you might want to, reduce the role to as efficient as possible. Or say, for example, this role has never been accessed, so you might want to go ahead and delete it as well. So all of these we will go ahead and do, and then finally we will go ahead and create a provisioning process for you. And we'll discuss around the provisioning processes as well. Now let us go ahead and see how exactly we go ahead and do it. So we'll come in and we'll ask you, sir, where are your, normally, and then our management team will come and ask you, sir, where are your employee repositories are? Is it Active Directory? Is it your HR database? Is it any other in a database or a CSV file? For the visibility part of it, we will go ahead and pick up any identity. When we say identity, we basically mean a human. All of the human in your organization who are accessing your applications, irrespective of them being employee, contractors, day-in users, or temporary users, where they are. Either they're in a CSV file or a directory or an LDAP, wherever they are, please give us that data. We will collect that data. We'll run a unification of that data to identify that, okay, we have a single data source, we have a single data repository, and all of the rest of the repositories are added to it. Then we will go ahead and collect anything. If you have any groups and accounts or entitlements in your directories, we'll go ahead and collect them. We will go ahead and collect the account and entitlements from your applications and from your SharePoint files and SharePoint folders if necessary. Okay, if you are giving permissions to us. Once we have done that, what we will do is we will create. Okay, we ran a unification once we collected the employee details or the identity details. Now we will run a merger of the employee details with the accounts and the entitlement data. At the end of this, we will have a very clear visibility of every user who or a human who has access to any kind of an account in the organization or any kind of an entitlement and any kind of an entitlement which is associated with that account data. Now, this will also give us orphan accounts, the accounts which don't have any kind of a human entity associated with that, or any kind of a managing authority associated with that. We will be able to go ahead and put in business descriptors to entitlements or accounts or identity data wherever possible and wherever necessary. And if necessary, we will go ahead and create custom attributes. When we say custom attributes, say, for example, you have entitlement or you have account data wherein the fields are not readily available in the identity management suite, we should be able to go ahead and create those custom attributes and go ahead and bring them in as well. Once the initial visibility part is done, we will go ahead and have a clear view of every user who has access to everything. And then based on that, we will go ahead and put in policies and certification, wherein we go ahead and create governance policies around the user. We will go ahead and create the lifecycle based role or request management, wherein we create access management policies, password management policies, etc. And how do we do the role discovery and everything. Then final and the last activity means we will go ahead and do the provisioning part of it. Now the provisioning part is a closed loop validation. So when we say closed loop validation, it means that once the provisioning is complete, it will verify it will do a reunification or a reconciliation to verify that whatever has been asked in the change request is exactly what has been provisioned. Until and unless that is a yes, it will not go ahead and say that the change is complete. It will put a change on the hold and go ahead and verify all of those. Now in provisioning, as I said before, there are multiple options. It can be directly to the system. Okay, the identity management platform can directly go ahead and provision into the system, or the identity management platform can go ahead and directly provision or indirectly provision through a ticketing platform, or it can go ahead and do a manual process where it can create a ticket inside itself and go ahead and associate it with some human or team to go ahead and take care of the process, or it can go ahead and integrate with the PAM system to go ahead and provision the changes as well. So all of those capabilities are present and should be present in the tool to go ahead and ensure complete provisioning as well. Now, the question would come, why do we need such a staggered approach? Okay. You need to have a very clear understanding of what kind of an architecture you're getting into. Is the data model or the governance data is aptly available for you or not? The governance data is a mix and match of multiple different components, and the data model should be present with you as well. So that is a core component of it. Now, you also should have separation of business logic and separation of integration logic. When we say that, we exactly mean like this. When you collect the data, it should not be dependent on what platform you're collecting into, or what platform you should be provisioning into. Gavin, can everybody hear me properly?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, awesome. All right, so the business logic, when we go ahead and create a segregation of duty policy between, say, for example, a maker, a checker in Finacle and SAP, okay, it should not be dependent on what kind of a provisioning I'm going to do into SAP, or what kind of a provisioning I'm going to do into Finacle. It should be dependent on that logic. All the violations and all the issues should come out independently, independently apart from what type of collection and what type of integration we are doing with the devices. So that is what the separation of business logic should be from the integration logic. Scalability and performance, the tool should be scalable enough to multiple million entitlements, and should not bog down on every reconciliation when it does. Obviously your reconciliation should be either daily or twice a day for high critical applications, etc., or it can be lesser as well. But for every time of reconciliation happens, or a large scale change happens, say for example 50 people are joining in with privileged access kind of a role, as you are adding SI to your organization, for example, that change should not trigger slowness in your IDAM platform. The tool should be scalable enough. The tool should be separated from the underlying technology as well, both from business logic perspective, both from provisioning perspective as well, and it should not cause slowness in the organization. So those are architectural components which you would look into. Okay, now you did an investment, so you need obviously you would be looking for a return for it as well. Your business teams don't understand. We're not supposed to understand coding inside an identity management platform. They should have a very clear UI. It should be a web form where they would be able to drag and drop things, and they should be able to create those logic of workflows, etc., whatever they need. And it should not be upon them to learn the tool as well. They should only learn their business processes and how the business processes are affected in the IDAM tool as well. So that is the only thing which they should need. The IT team should not be okay. Sorry. Okay. And similarly, the IT team should not be forced to run the business logic as well, so that they can go ahead and manage and maintain the tool. So everything in the tool should be clearly viewable, UI based, and should be configurable from the UI as well. Then the tool should have premises. The tool should have capabilities of views not only on-prem. It should be available on cloud. It should be able to cater to your cloud business as well. It should be able to cater to your thick clients as well, on-prem capabilities as well. Okay, so the tool should not go ahead and tell that, okay, I cannot connect to XYZ application, and so that's the problem. The tool should give you one or the other way to go ahead and do the governance around every application which you are interested to bring under the purview. Completeness of the solution should cover not only governance. It should cover complete provisioning and complete single sign-on capabilities. It should also cover data access around standalone devices, data access around SharePoints. All right. And okay, it should cover all applications, data, users, and devices which you want to bring under its purview. It should manage the complete business from an identity lifecycle. When the user comes in, when the user goes out, all of those need to be managed. The tool should understand governance, and it should also be able to take governance implications from different tools and pass on security controls to different tools as well, which we can go ahead and see in the next slide. Okay, so this last point, integration with SIM, data access governance, etc., is something which I'll discuss on the next slide. But on why do we need identity governance framework which is staggered, which is a complete visibility, is because, as I said before, everything should be controlled from a single point. All the policies should be pushed into that single collected data or the data model. The data model should be able to go ahead and react so that business managers and all of those different roles who are coming in from the identity management perspective can perform their duties independently. But all of the collection of the identity and the data models should be at the same place so that we can go ahead and create uniform policies and controls. Now, these uniform policies and controls can come in from different systems as well. So from the IDAM perspective, it will give you complete enterprise-wide visibility of the data, of the identity data in the organization. Okay, it will go ahead and provide the identity context. It should go ahead and provide the identity context to GRC solutions, etc. as well, who are the superior governing authority across an enterprise. And from there, it can take different governance actions and go ahead and implement or provision them directly back to its own systems as well, so that the super or the upper layer governance model is same as the lower lens governance model as well. This also creates one more simple visibility, that we don't have to create a different risk organization. All of the identity risk and all of the identity-based risk issues are shared with GRC models, and all GRC risks, say for example business criticality, say for example asset criticality, say for example user criticality, etc., are also flown back to the identity management system. Similarly, the identity management system should go ahead and provides its own details to your SOC as well, wherein access patterns, approvals, governance histories, critical and privileged access, all of those should be shared with the governance tool, to the SOC tool as well. And the SOC tool should go ahead and feed in prioritized data to both GRC as well as back to the identity management platform as well. Say for example, SOC team finds out that there is a specific issue with that identity, they can go ahead and find out, they can go ahead and ask the identity management tool to block the privileges based on the other privilege which the identity has across the enterprise. It can create a review process inside to see that the other applications are okay or not. Okay. Going into coverage. All right, as I said, the tool should be ever present everywhere, and should give you coverage for all applications which are either on-prem, or you have a hybrid kind of a scenario wherein some of your investment is in cloud, some of them is in on-prem, or a full-fledged new cloud deployment. You have the entire cloud, then also you should be able to be serviced. And then we also have our hosted partners, wherein if you want that the entire thing is taken care of by and managed by some partners, we can also go ahead and do that as well for you. I just wanted to share this slide on what is mandated by one of our biggest regulators on financial regulators, that's the RBI. The ones in blue are what are mandated by them, and the blue plus the green ones are one which we provide out of the box. Okay. I understand this is a very busy slide, We will share it with you. Don't worry about it, and you can go through all of those. Yep, I'm kind of at the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I would be happy to take them up.
Hey, Samik, yes, there are a couple of questions. Let me, I've got them lined up here. Let me go through them. So one of the questions, and this is kind of a multi-phase question, how does the licensing work? How does the licensing work? Is it based on users or applications or services or databases?
No. It should be a static licensing. It should be number of users, and it is number of users. You can bring in any number of applications at the end of the day.
Okay. How do we integrate with Office 365 with MFA enabled users?
We have integrators built in. We have connectors built in. We integrate with Azure AD as well for the authentication bit of it, and for collection and for the collection and the connection part of it, we go ahead and have our own connectors and collectors built in for Microsoft Azure and Microsoft cloud-based solutions.
Got it. Another one. Can we assume there is no brute force / dictionary attacks post implementing this solution?
We don't store any passwords. We always rely on your directory to authenticate users, and we are always a slave to your directory. So even if you go in, it will not be available. All of the accounts which are in the identity management system, the only account the identity management system will bring into your enterprise is AWEX admin, which you can secure with a two-factor or a multi-factor authentication.
So this is essentially governance and lifecycle as opposed to any sort of multi-factor authentication program.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Can we integrate the solution with our VPN boxes? Again, I'm assuming that question is around kind of MFA authentication as opposed to governance and lifecycle type operation.
But if we see the other side of it, say for example, if you have an ACS kind of a scenario in your organization, we can control the ACS kind of a scenario. We do have an SSH connector. We do have an actress will go ahead and connect to your directly to your routers and switches, but we would not regularly use that because your AAA and other components which are free are much more efficient than our tool. But our tool can connect to your AAA and take the intelligence data out of it and give you a very clear view of how things are working. The authentication part, as Gavin said, is we discussed it in the previous webinar. We can for sure have a discussion around that again. But from identity management perspective, yes, we can govern the access rights in your networking devices as well. We would prefer to do it from your centralized access control. But if you want us to directly go in, we can as
well. Right. Excuse me, I think you've answered this question. Is it cloud-based solution or is it on-prem?
We have all the three options available. It can be on-prem, it can be on cloud. If you want it hybrid available at both ends, we can be available as that as well.
Excellent. Another question, can we integrate the solution with non-domain servers?
Yes, we can. Standalone devices are where most of our, unforeseen or an unfortunate past resides in, and we should bring them into our security purview as well. And the tool does a crawling. The tool has a crawling component which can go ahead and identify standalone accounts inside devices and servers or applications for that case, which are non-domain based, and we can bring them into our purview and control as well.
Another question, can we manage onboarding offloading process using the solution?
Process?
I think there's a question more around non-identities. I mean, if there's processes kind of to bring into the organization, it's most probably a no, just given that it's, as you said, the identity is regulated around a particular human being.
Correct. If it's a policy around an identity, yes. If it's an identity, yes. But if it is in process, I don't think so. We would rather prefer something like a GRC tool, etc. Okay, like Archer, RSA Archer for that case.
And maybe, Sumik, if you can just reiterate around the governance and compliance type tasks that this solution takes into account, as opposed to what we were talking about 3 weeks ago with the multi-factor authentication and identity access management.
Okay, so say for example, governance tells you from a risk-based approach, what kind of problems are there in your organization? That's a very simple definition of governance. And the second step of that is how do you mitigate all of those, all right? So from an identity perspective, if you take identity in an organization, there are multifaceted types of identities, can be contractor, can be day-in user, can be even your gatekeeper as well, who signs in your register. It can be an automated process for that case as well. They might have some kind of an access in your applications. What we need to do is we need to identify as a user what kind of an access they have, as an account what kind of a privileges they have, merge it with the user and tell you what kind of a problems you have and give you options to solve those problems. So that is the governance approach for identity management what we bring in. Okay, from an authentication perspective, this process will automate the joiner mover lever process to give, based on the role, what kind of authentication the user will have. So for example, if it is a privileged user, he will always do MFA. He should have an MFA token. If it's a simple user and he is accessing from inbound, he might not even have a token for that case. Okay, he might just log in with his username password because he is accessing it from inside the organization on a secure machine to a secure target. He is not going outside the organization, so he might not even have a second factor of authentication. But if he is a mobile user like a sales guy, then he might have a secure laptop, he might have a secure profile, he might have secure access, and there might be multiple rules for him to access, say for example, Salesforce. I can access Salesforce when I'm in VPN without a second factor authentication. But when I'm accessing Salesforce from outside my organization, I need to go ahead and do a two-factor authentication. Now, that two-factor authentication can also be stopped if I'm accessing it from, say, for example, from my competitive organization's place. So that's a policy-driven process. All of those policy-driven processes will initiate from here, from the governance tool, and go ahead and percolate into the authentication and other places as well.
Awesome, thank you. This is another question from Amit. Associates and contractors are key in identity management. How does this solution help organizations managing complete life cycle of these population? And how do we do periodic recon and validation as part of this compliance? Great question.
So from contractor or from vendor perspective, we can initiate the process, start from initiation at the beginning. So say for example, if you have a contractor tool, or if you don't even have a contractor tool, you can initiate the process from here, wherein you can go ahead and say that I am foreseeing that I need a new project wherein I might need XYZ type of contractors to be coming in. From then on, you can go ahead and create processes around it, that, okay, these set of contractors will need these kind of access, these building access, these closet access, etc. Apart from that, they will go ahead and need, might be two-factor, might be these SAP or XYZ application access. Based on that, they will be given accesses from XYZ date till XYZ date, and in between, it has to be certified by the contractor manager, number one, and number two would be the application manager for that case. So all of these review processes, all of these lifecycle processes can be created around contractors. If you have a GRC tool, or if you have a Excel-based GRC tool, we can integrate with that as well and be a part of the entire lifecycle, or create an entire lifecycle for the contractor and or the vendor management directly from the tool itself.
Very good. Can we integrate the solution with self-password reset tool?
It has a password management functionality in itself, and it can integrate with any password management tool for that case.
Very good. How do we integrate with internal development web panels? How quickly can this be integrated considering medium complexity?
Okay, so when we integrate, we mean only two very small things. So as you might have listened that, our integration logic is entirely separate from our business logic. Our integration logic is very simple. We create connectors. A connector can be a read-only. It can just listen to a text file or a CSV file for that case. Okay, based on that, I can collect the entitlements, collect the mappings of the account and the permission details, and give you governance views of what is happening. But when you go ahead and ask me that, Soumik, yes, I need to do automated changes, then I need to connect back to the application, obviously with admin rights to go ahead and do changes. And that is also separated from the business logic of the application. So connecting to an application to get any data is very simple for me. Governance is entirely read-only if you want to. Okay, only the provisioning part on which I need to do changes will be with the right access, but those are very separated components from the governance piece as well, and we can integrate to any application for that case.
So that's the next question. Can we integrate with SAP?
Yes,
SAP?
we do have existing connectors.
Yep.
We do have SAP connectors, and we can integrate with SAP as well.
Very good. Here's another one from Rajesh. How do we make access reviews more intelligent? As a manager of a team, we blindly approve all of the entitlements of team members, call it laziness or lack of time in today's world. Can SecureID provide EUBA, UBA type insight to enlighten them?
Yes, we can.
That's going to be last question, right? We are running out of time.
Sure.
That's the last one.
That was the last one now.
All right. So for the access reviews, as I said, we can base it on outliers. We can base it on peer reviews. We can base it on high-risk applications. We can base it on multiple different facets. So we have out of the box 17 different facets on which you can baseline a peer review. And then there is the last facet, which is like all accesses which are non-changed, remain same, and everything remains same as well. So we can not only make it interesting, we can make it very contextual for the reviewer to not do a rubber stamping process. And it would be very much relevant for the user to go ahead and for the approver to go ahead and view data, which is kind of exceptional for that user or the group of users to go ahead and approve any kind of an access.
Great. I think that's about it, right? Do we have more questions in the chat? Maybe we can take one.
Because there was one or two other questions, but I think we can actually follow up directly with the folk. They're quite simple. We can actually just send them back answers.
Perfect. Sounds good. So great session, Soumik. A lot of good insights around overall identity management. So guys, last couple of bits. If you want a participation certificate like this, and you promise it to upload on LinkedIn and tag EliteCISOs, what you can do is you can go to EliteCISOs website, go to event section, and then click on CPE certificate. Once you click on CPE certificate, you will go to a page or a form like this. Enter your email address over here, your full name, and the password to download the certificate today is 𝗓𝗓𝗏, 𝗓𝗓𝗏𝗓𝗓 is the password. Right. And now why 𝗓𝗓𝗏 as a password? Today's significance, June 17th, 1997, hackers broke the DES encryption for the very first time, right? So today is a great day, having authentication session by SecureID RSA. And on the same date, 1997, hacker broke DES encryption. So the password is 𝗓𝗓𝗏. Okay. I'm going to put it on the chat as well. That is the password. And you know how to get it. Go to EliteCISO's website, click on events, upcoming events, and then click on CPE certificate. Now, we are coming up with an excellent workshop over this weekend. As I said last time, that lockdown is kind of being lifted in India and people will venture out. We do not want to do that. You are never sure about Corona. So in our attempt to ensure people have got something to do over a weekend, we are coming up with this 4-hour workshop on Saturday. This workshop is with Sophos, and the topic is how do you build your advanced SOC? So it's going to be an interesting session. We have got international speakers, and they are joining on India time. So go ahead and register for it. Registrations are open. There is another training we are doing, or a workshop we are doing with VMware around zero trust architecture building and briefing. So that is in July. I mean, the registrations are live. If you want, you can go ahead and register for this as well. With that, let me come to the final end, which is the Wheel of Fortune, which we run every time. And this time the giveaway is going to be a foot massager, right? Because we lot of noise. 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗀, mute yourself. Great. So because we give this stand and attend challenge, so you might have little bit pains in your calf and all. So to soothe that, we are giving away this foot massager. It has got 100 people, right? 100 people in the sense we said last time, 100 first people to register for this event will be part of the raffle, right? So we have got, you can see over here, 100 people, and Vivek Ahuja ji was fastest finger first one to register. And we have 100 people in this Wheel of Fortune. So we are going to spin it once. Let's see who the winner is going to be. Okay, let's see. And I'm going to spin it now. Let's see who the winner is. And I see, very nice. It goes to Delhi, I guess. Yes, Navneet Sikka, very nice. So Navneet, congratulations. He is member of Delhi chapter. Navneet, if you are there in the session, go to the chat and type yes. I don't see Navneet in the chat saying yes. So I am going to spin it one more time. Hard luck. Navneet, guys, go ahead and put his name in the WhatsApp group for Delhi NCR chapter and say that he missed it. Okay, I'm going to spin it again, Deepak. Yes, why not? So remove him and then spin it one more time. Let me try that. Okay, now it is spinning again. Let's see. Sridhar from, I think, Hyderabad chapter. Are you there, Sridhar? Let me see in the chat. If you are there, go to the chat window and say yes. No, still not. Great. So again, I'm going to spin it one more time. Let's see. Where does this go? Jagdev, very nice. I think Jagdev is there. He's again from Delhi chapter. And he is very fit person, very enthusiastic. Let us see.
Oh,
Jagdev is there. Yes,
yeah,
wonderful. Congrats, Jagdev. You know me very well. We have been friends from past many years. Ping me and we will deliver it to you. Glad you won this. Thanks for coming on video as well.
Good job.
Just show your Aadhaar card.
Thank you, 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗀ji. I have been standing for complete 1 hour now.
Very nice.
It has been a great session.
Kudos. Great. So,
Thanks.
Thanks for joining everyone. See you guys next week or maybe not itself. There was a lot of noise coming, so I was saying thanks everyone for joining. Again, great session delivered by 𝗬𝗵𝗲𝗀 and Gavin. So see you guys on Saturday. Registrations are live. You can go ahead and register for it, and then let's have a great workshop then. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.